Something is collapsing. The catamaran market is collapsing, and millions of dollars in boats are being dumped onto the market. Owners are cutting prices by half, desperate to escape a sinking ship. Once, buyers battled to pay over $1 million for these boats, convinced values would only rise. Now inventories are exploding, and distress sales are spreading like wildfire. How did such an unstoppable rise spiral into collapse? The answer is not just in the headlines. It lies beneath the surface where hidden flaws and panic triggered something no one was prepared for. But that wasn't the real problem. What happened next shocked the market. This is where everything broke, and what happens next may be more shocking than anyone expects. At the heart of the current catamaran crisis sits a single undeniable fact. The market is drowning in unsold boats. Industry trackers report listing counts at all-time highs, numbers not seen even in the wake of the 2008 financial crash. Brokers whisper about marina rows packed with identical models, each one waiting for a buyer who never comes. In 2025, the average time on market for a mid-sized catamaran has ballooned from a few weeks to 6 months or more. Some boats sit even longer, gathering dust and hope in equal measure. A new phrase echoes through dealer offices and online forums. Zombie listings. These are boats that linger on portals month after month. Prices are slashed again and again, yet they remain unsold. Instead of a healthy churn, the inventory piles up. Each new listing is a signal of deeper trouble. Brokers admit privately that for every well-priced catamaran that sells, there are dozens more left stranded, their owners forced to chase the market down. The numbers are stark. In the first half of 2025, global catamaran listings spiked by more than 40% compared to the previous year. At the same time, completed sales dropped sharply, leaving sellers trapped between mounting costs and evaporating demand. Broker chatter is thick with anxiety. Some speak of a ghost fleet, boats that technically exist on the market, but may never find a real buyer at any price. This is not just a temporary glut. The evidence points to a structural overload, with wave after wave of new inventory hitting an already saturated market. The panic is not just in the headlines, it is in the numbers, the empty docks, and the growing silence where buyers used to be. Behind every zombie listing, there is a story of an owner desperate to escape before the next round of price cuts lands. In 2021, the catamaran market turned into a frenzy. Buyers, flush with cash from stock market and crypto gains, lined up for boats that barely touched the docks before selling. Brokers remember when a mid-sized lagoon or leopard would disappear in a matter of weeks, sometimes days, at prices that seemed unimaginable just a few years before. Waiting lists stretched out for years. Some buyers paid $1 million and still had to wait until 2023 or 2024 for delivery. The promise of a boat, any boat, was enough to trigger bidding wars. The psychology was simple and contagious. Everyone believed prices could only go higher. There was talk of boats as investments, not just toys. Dealers fueled the fire by warning that new build slots were vanishing, and that even used models would soon be out of reach. Social media and YouTube showed families sailing the world, living the dream, and flipping boats for profit. The fear of missing out gripped even cautious buyers. Brokers recall fielding dozens of calls for a single listing. Some buyers waived inspections, skipped surveys, and wired deposits after seeing only a handful of photos. The numbers were staggering. $1 million to $1.5 million for a 46-foot catamaran, with options and upgrades piling on. Time on market shrank to record lows. In the heat of the boom, the idea of a price drop seemed laughable. The only question was how much higher values would climb. This belief, that the market could never turn, set the stage for what would come next, when the music finally stopped. Production lines that once struggled to keep up with demand became a trap. In the early days of the pandemic, factories that build catamarans were forced to shut down or run at a crawl. Shipyards in France and South Africa faced rolling closures, labor shortages, and a scramble for critical parts. Engines, electronics, and resin became rare commodities. Every missing component added weeks or months to already long delivery schedules. By 2021, the backlog stretched into the thousands. Manufacturers promised buyers their boat would arrive. Eventually. Orders stacked up, deposits poured in, and the assembly lines never stopped, even as the world outside began to change. But the supply chain bottleneck was only temporary. By late 2022, factories were back at full speed, churning out hulls to clear the backlog. The orders they were racing to fill had been placed during the height of the boom, when demand seemed limitless. Materials had been bought in bulk, labor contracts signed, and production booked out years in advance. Once those commitments were made, stopping the line was not an option. Even as new buyers vanished, hulls kept rolling out, each one destined for a market that no longer wanted it. By 2024, a hidden wave of catamarans began to hit the water. Boats that were supposed to be rare and coveted now arrived in clusters, flooding docks and brokerages. The pipeline that once guaranteed scarcity now guaranteed oversupply. For every boat delivered, another batch waited behind it, already paid for, already built, and now impossible to cancel. Manufacturers locked into their schedules became silent drivers of the coming flood. A backlog had transformed into a tidal wave of unwanted inventory. Lenders used to welcome catamaran buyers with open arms. For years, low interest rates and easy approvals made even $1 million boat seem within reach. But by 2025, that world had vanished. Marine loan rates now hover between 8 and 10%. The difference is brutal. On a $500,000 catamaran, the monthly payment jumps by $750 compared to just a few years ago. For many would-be buyers, that extra cost is a deal-breaker. Banks have grown wary. Underwriters scrutinize every detail: credit scores, down payments, income, even the projected charter revenue that once helped buyers stretch further. The rules have tightened. A strong application in 2021 might not even get a second look now. Lenders quietly raise down payment requirements, demand better debt-to-income ratios, and question every optimistic spreadsheet. The pool of qualified buyers shrinks with each rate hike. Brokers talk about deals collapsing at the last minute. Pre-approvals expire. Contracts fall apart when the financing doesn't come through. Some buyers, locked into adjustable rate loans, watch their monthly bills climb just as values fall. Others simply walk away, unwilling to pay thousands more each year for a boat that is losing value by the month. The effect is everywhere. Listings pile up, not just because there are too many boats, but because fewer people can actually afford to buy them. The math has changed, and so has the psychology. For every catamaran that hits the market, there are fewer serious buyers left standing. The easy money is gone, replaced by caution and silence. Lenders now hold the keys, and most doors stay closed. Charter operators, once the engine of catamaran demand, have become the market's biggest sellers. In the Mediterranean and Caribbean, entire fleets are being rotated out at once. Dream Yacht Charter and Navigare, two of the world's largest operators, began unloading hundreds of boats between 2023 and 2025, following financial restructurings and a sharp drop in charter margins. Their strategy is simple: shed older, less profitable boats to repair balance sheets and modernize fleets. The result is a flood of nearly identical ex-charter models: Lagoon 42s, Leopard 45s, Fountaine Peugeot Lucias, hitting brokerage portals in clusters. One search in Croatia or Greece now reveals dozens from 2018 to 2020 catamarans, all with similar layouts, hours, and wear, each competing for attention in a market already saturated with private listings. These disposals are not subtle. Brokers report that for some models, more than half of all global listings are ex-charter hulls, many clustered within the same marina or region. The price gap is clear. Ex-charter boats trade at a 15 to 25% discount compared to privately owned equivalents of the same year and model. But that wasn't the real problem. Buyers see the volume and demand even deeper cuts, citing cosmetic wear and the hire car effect of heavy charter use. In response, operators and brokers anchor prices low, setting reference points that private sellers cannot ignore. What happened next shocked the market. A 2019 Lagoon 42 out of fleet in Greece, might list at €295,000 excluding value-added tax, while a lightly used private boat struggles to justify €375,000. The effect ripples globally. Buyers in Florida or the Caribbean reference Mediterranean fleet prices, forcing down values everywhere. The charter fleet dump is relentless. As more bases consolidate and older boats exit, the market absorbs wave after wave of near-identical listings. For every private owner hoping to hold the line, there are 10 ex-charter boats priced to move. Mass panic followed. Private sellers raced to undercut each other, and brokers sliced prices to stay competitive. The secondary market's new reality is set not by scarcity, but by the relentless logic of bulk liquidation. This is where the oversupply becomes unmissable. This is where everything broke. Insurance bills have become the silent wrecking ball for catamaran owners. Insurance costs doubled and even tripled since 2020. Some carriers pulled out of the Caribbean and Florida altogether. Owners who once paid $10,000 a year for coverage now face invoices of $20,000 or more if they can get coverage at all. Insurers demand stricter mooring plans, seasonal relocations, and higher deductibles, every requirement adding cost and hassle. But that wasn't the real problem. Marina fees have climbed just as quickly. Wide beam slips, already scarce, now command a premium. In Miami and Fort Lauderdale, monthly rates for a 45-foot cat have soared past $2,000. Annual contracts are often unavailable and subject to waiting lists. Even in the Mediterranean, inflation and surging demand for berths pushed prices to new highs. Some owners now pay more to dock their boat than to rent an apartment in the same city. For those stuck with unsold boats, each month on the dock is another drain. No buyer, no relief. What happened next shocked the market. Refit costs are the next blow. 5-year-old cats coming out of charter need everything: new sails, rigging, engines serviced, upholstery replaced. Quotes for a proper refit now routinely start at $100,000. Some owners face bills of $150,000 or more just to bring a boat up to private sale standards. Parts shortages and labor inflation drive costs higher every season. Many simply can't justify the spend when resale values are falling so fast. This is where everything broke. Losses are staggering. A buyer who paid $1.2 million for a Lagoon 46 in 2021 now sees similar boats closing at $480,000. More than half their equity wiped out in just 4 years. The math is brutal. Rising monthly bills, plummeting values, and a market with no easy exits. For owners who bought at the peak, every new invoice is a reminder that waiting only makes things worse. The pressure to sell becomes overwhelming, even if it means accepting a fraction of what they once believed their boat was worth. Is this only the beginning of a much larger collapse, or the biggest buyer opportunity in years? Banks once fueled the catamaran boom, but now they are pulling the rug out from under the market. As resale values collapsed, lenders began demanding bigger down payments and slashing appraisals on late-model boats. Buyers who stretched for $1 million catamaran in 2021 now face loan balances far above what their boats will fetch. When payments fall behind, there is no room to refinance, only repossession. Word spreads fast when a repossessed 2019 Leopard 45, once worth over $1 million, goes to auction for $600,000. That is a 40% haircut, and it is not an outlier. Brokers report forced sales and distressed listings closing at discounts once thought impossible. The moment these deals hit the market, every seller is forced to stare down a new reality. Price cuts accelerate, hope drains out. Panic selling takes hold as owners try to get out before the next repo auction resets values even lower. In this environment, lenders are no longer partners. They are the ones calling time on the dream. Panic spreads fastest in the price sheets. Sellers watching their boats gather dust start slashing numbers, first by 5%, then 10%, then 20%. Brokers, desperate to show movement, urge clients to cut deeper. The pattern is relentless. A boat lists at $700,000, lingers for months, drops to $600,000, then $540,000, and still the phone stays quiet. Each new concession becomes the baseline for every similar catamaran in the marina. Private owners, outmatched by ex-charter fleets and dealer trade-ins, are forced to follow the spiral down. But that was not the real problem. What happened next shocked the market. This is where everything broke. BoatShed's data from 2025 reveals the average seller now concedes 28 to 30% off their initial ask before a deal closes. The feedback loop is brutal. Every price cut triggers another, as buyers hold out for the next round of reductions. Brokers float rumors of pending deals to nudge offers, but buyers know the game. Wait long enough, and the price will fall again. Some listings are deliberately underpriced, sacrificed to create buzz and lure buyers off the sidelines. In this environment, no one wants to be the last to cut. The market is in free fall, and every seller is racing to the bottom. Manufacturers, desperate to keep factories running and dealers afloat, have triggered the final collision. Instead of holding out for buyers, builders now dangle discounts so steep they make nearly new used boats unsellable. At the spring 2025 boat shows, dealers quietly offered new Lagoon 46 boats and Leopard 45 boats with factory incentives, slashing tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, off the sticker. Free upgrades, extended warranties, and even subsidized delivery packages became standard, just to move stock out of overflowing yards. The numbers no longer make sense. A used 2022 Catamaran listed at $700,000 sits ignored, while buyers are lured by new builds discounted to nearly the same price with full warranties and custom options. Brokers admit some used listings exist only to make new boat deals look irresistible. Every incentive, every rebate, every bundled option pushes the resale ceiling lower. Owners who bought at the peak watch as the value of their boats is erased, not by time or use, but by the very factories that once promised endless appreciation. This is where everything broke. The market, overwhelmed by a tidal wave of incentives and discounts, can no longer find the floor. For every seller, hope is gone. For every buyer, the rules have changed. The collapse is complete. Right now, thousands of catamarans sit idle. Listings are swelling and values are in freefall. For every owner, buyer, and builder, the rules of the market just changed. The market is collapsing. Oversupply and uncertainty have collided. Fortunes can vanish overnight, or they can be made in a single bold move. This is where everything broke. The real question is this: is this the bottom, or just the first wave? The answers will shape the next era on the water. What do you think comes next?